Change can be sort of a funny thing. If you were to ask a friend what they thought of change, they would turn to you and say, I'm kind of into change. I like change. I'm flexible. I have an open mind. But if you were to evaluate the response or the implementation of that change, well, that can take a long time, and it can require a lot of persuasion. That's because our brains are hardwired to resist change. We like things to either stay the same or change very, very slowly. Now, the problem with this is we do know that there are people out there that love to make change and they inspire us to do so. And I think that's possible because a lot of the things come in chain reactions, ideas that connect together in order to get a chain reaction going. So for the people that are the artists, the entrepreneurs, the technologists, the inventors, the creatives, the technologists, the engineers, if you can understand how these elements of chain reactions and the ingredients of chain reactions work together, you can take your idea and refine it. You can make it a little bit more potent when it gets in the market, and you might even be able to predict the future. Before we can predict the future, however, we got to go to the past. The past is always prologue, and our story starts with the Discman in 1985. So over the course of its 16-year lifespan, Sony sold 46 million Discman. And how did they do that? I mean, this was so incredible, and it was so powerful, and it's the first ingredient to starting a chain reaction, and that's convenience. Your new product, your new idea has to be more convenient than the previous product. So the Discman, which is tub-tailing off of the Walkman, the incumbent system was vinyl, records. And you needed record players, and you needed amplifiers, and you needed speakers. And what the Discman did is it just simplified this and shrunk it into a little box that you could take with you. And that's why Sony sold millions and millions of this little simple product. That is until Apple showed up. And when Apple showed up in 2001, they didn't just dethrone Sony's Discman, they changed the entire market. In only 13 years, Apple sold 390 million iPods. Now, how is that possible? If you look at these two products side by side, that doesn't really make sense because these essentially do the same thing. They're about the same size, they're about the same weight, they both require batteries, and they both play music. So they have equal convenience when you measure it that way. But that leads us to the second ingredient of a chain reaction. You see, the answer to how the iPod did so much better, about 8.5 times better to be exact than the Discman, is hidden in the advertising. They tell us, say hello to iPod, 1,000 songs in your pocket. Did you catch it? Because if you think about it, what's happening here is in the decades leading up to the iPod, the behavior of people was to record music off the radio and to assemble these mixtapes and mix CDs because they wanted control over the variety of songs. But the music industry's business model was all album-based. And they were fighting against the way the consumers actually used their own products, and they didn't even realize it. And then Apple comes along, and it uses that second ingredient, control, and it says, we're going to make a system and a business model that is song-based. We're going to challenge the business model of the entire record industry, and when we do that, we're going to be able to start that chain reaction. And so that gives you the control that the user really wants. And the iPod essentially becomes a mixtape device. Now, this is a little bit of an older example, so we're going to go to a little bit newer one. We'll start with Uber. Everybody understands how Uber works, and Uber's going to take that first ingredient. Remember, the first ingredient is convenience, right? So they're going to take their convenience, this GPS, this Wi-Fi access, this auto pay, which makes it really convenient for the user. So all this goes into their convenient category, which is more convenient than a cab or a livery service. Then they're going to add that second ingredient, control. The control from Uber comes to us in the form of maps and location services. And so when you add this in, it makes it really convenient because you can pick your destination, your pickup point. It gives you estimations on the time it will take to get there and the price. So your value goes up. But then there's a third ingredient. This is the most important ingredient, and an ingredient that is much harder to deploy. But if you can deploy this, you can understand to harness this intangible ingredient, you can create these chain reactions. That ingredient I call inspired change. Your product needs to inspire some sort of change, and that comes to us with Uber in the form of a rating. A rating is not the Uber product itself, yet it allows us to engage in a relationship. There is now some accountability between the driver and the passenger that didn't exist beforehand. And this intangibleness starts to have that relationship, and that inspires behavioral differences that didn't exist when we worked with taxi cabs. Here's another example. The grocery store industry business model hasn't changed in over 50 years. And groups like Blue Apron come along and they start to challenge that business model. And they start, of course, with convenience, because convenience is the first part of building a chain reaction. So their convenience, it's delivered to your home. It's a lot more efficient in terms of the amount of ingredients you get, so the value goes up and it costs a little bit less. And then you have this benefit of a chef. You have someone actually cooking for you and designing this recipes for you. Then they move into control, and their control element is really clever. They have control to the user by giving you proper portions. You see, when you go to the grocery store, they don't really care about how much you buy. A bag of sugar might only need to be yielding a spoonful of sugar, and the control given to the customer through Blue Apron is just a spoonful of sugar. But then that third ingredient, the intangible thing, the thing that the product represents but isn't the product itself, that inspired change, it comes to us through Blue Apron in the form of being healthier. See, grocery stores don't really care how much you buy, how many you buy for, what aisles you go down. Some people might even say that a grocery store is a horror show of temptation. But Blue Apron says, no, we want to inspire you to be healthier. And we're going to give you the recipes and the ingredients in order to accomplish that. And we actually care about how many you're cooking for and how you're cooking for all those people. That inspires change. Being healthier is not the Blue Apron product. It's the inspiration behind the product that makes us feel comfortable with the company. Here's another example. Warby Parker starts out their company, and they start to take on the optometry business model, and they threaten it. And so they start again, also with convenience. They have a delivery service that brings the glasses to your home. They're a little bit more efficient because of that. And then you also have this benefit of expert opinions. Who are the experts in this? Your friends. Your family, your coworkers, because they know you very well. And then their control ingredient is so powerful. Their control ingredient is the ability to give you a trial period. So you get a number of glasses sent to you, and those glasses you can take and show them to other people. And if you think about it, if you're going to put something on your face every single day, don't you want to make that decision take a little bit more time than about an hour? So what happens here is they've got this going for them, but then you get to that third ingredient, that intangible. And it comes to us in the form of a donation. You see, every time you buy a pair of Warby Parker glasses, you're able to give something away because the company will donate a pair of glasses to a developing country. And through that donation, we belong to something. The donation isn't the product itself, it's an inspired change to belong to something. So whether it's you belong to something, or you want to be healthier, or you just need to behave, these are the intangible things that start to inspire change. These are not the products themselves, but without them, you can't have that chain reaction. So I mentioned at the beginning that we could take these principles and maybe predict the future. And that's what we could do now. There's a big change about to come around the corner, and it's very near and dear to me because it's the market that I live and work in, that I call home. This change is going to be so significant, I would use the word to define what it's going to be as violent. This is going to be front page news on every publication, and it is going to change everything about what happens. And it's going to be a massive change in the media industry. And before we can get into it, we have to understand how it works. So the media industry is broken into these very vertically integrated groups. And so whether it's film or broadcast or broadband or music or gaming or virtual reality, these are all kind of independent, compartmentalized groups. And on top of them sit very common, familiar companies that you all probably know. And so as time goes on, these have been conveniently separate from each other. But as we move forward, all of these are going to merge together. The internet is going to take over, and you're starting to see that happen. Movies going to the web, and broadcast going to the web, and gaming going to the web, and music on the web, right? It's all happening. Because of this, some companies are going to die off because we won't need them anymore. Other companies are going to compete with each other and maybe merge together and work together in order to compete with the companies they're trying to kill off. So all of this is sort of happening, and now it's setting the stage for something that's really, really remarkable, and it's going to happen. And everyone's not only going to get a front row in watching this happen, you will have a say in it because you're part of the consumer experience. So this is where it looks like. We're going to start with the past. Remember, past is prologue. You always start with the past. And so we start with the past, and we have about 10 years ago, all the OTT groups, over-the-top groups, Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, Google, YouTube, Apple. These are the groups that start with convenience, right? They have a product, and they're going to start streaming content for you. It's not original content. It doesn't technologically look that good. There's not even that much of it. And you can get this content pretty much anywhere else. But it's just a little bit more convenient because they're giving it to you on the go, and they're giving it to you in your home, and it's always on demand. Now, that inspired the consumer electronics industry to respond because they said, oh, this is a great opportunity. So they started building new televisions and new computer screens and higher quality displays. And they said, well, this is a great opportunity for us because we can capitalize on this change. And the audiences said, yeah, that looks pretty good. I think this is starting to look good. I like what's coming about this. So we're going to invest in it. But then the movie industry says, well, we can't be left behind, so we have to take advantage of it. So at that time, they had a film projection infrastructure. Everything was distributed on film prints. And they said, well, let's take our film projection system and replace them with high-quality digital cinema projection systems. And so they said, this is pretty good, and audiences showed up and said, I think this looks great. This is a whole lot better quality. There's a lot more improvement in the experience, and so everybody's happy, right? Everything's good. Everybody upgraded. That's the end, right? Of course not, because now we know the second ingredient of the chain reaction. You go back to the OTT companies, and now this is only 5 years ago, and they took their convenience model, and then they added control. That control comes to us in the form of bidirectional communication. See, when you watch something in a movie theater, you are actually the end of the chain. It's projected to your eyes. But on the internet, you get to feed information back. There's a relationship, there's bidirectionality because it comes in the form of these other devices that work together to make the product better and make your experience better and make your voice heard, and you start to interact with the content in a way that you can't when you see a movie. In fact, when you go to a movie theater, the item which we covet the most is not allowed. They have a big screen that says, the item which ye covet the most, put away and turn off, right? That is a problem with their business plan. And so what happens when we do this is we now got to look at the audiences reacting to all of this new stuff coming in this bidirectional relationship with the OTT groups. And the movie industry says, okay, we got to respond. Here's our idea. And this is what the movie studios are doing. They're taking their projection systems and they're doubling them. They're stacking projectors to make the image twice as bright. Then they're taking the speakers and they're quadrupling them. Anywhere you can fit a speaker, we're putting a speaker. Then we're removing seats so that they can put in these big seats that are $24 a ticket, and then these seats are gonna rumble, right? And they wanna turn the movie-going experience into some sort of ride. Now, the problem with this is their plan to stay relevant in the market, but I posit that this will actually be their demise, and I can prove it. You see, even though I could say that brighter screens and more speakers and rumble seats might make an action movie or superhero movie better, movie theaters never used to decide what type of movie people would see. Because a brighter screen and more speakers and rumble seats does not make a drama sadder, and it does not make a comedy funnier. And so inadvertently, a technology-driven idea is going to take over the creative, and you never want technology to lead the creativity. It's got to be the other way around. And this is a mistake. This is a bad move because they're letting technology drive it forward. And inadvertently, people are not going to be able to consume the type of content that they want unless it is something that's really loud and really expensive and really big. But where are people going to go and get this? This is where the inspired change comes in the OTT. They're already responding to this need because they understand that they need to make the content, and they're making it and spending billions each year to do that. They're not only going to increase the content that the movie theaters show, they're also going to add music and concerts and education and children's programming and comedy specials and classic movies. And all these things are all going to go up on the rise. There's going to be more and more of this played out together. And because of that, they're going to use the technology from the consumer electronics group, ultra high definition, 4K. It's going to be brighter screens, and it's going to be wide color, more color. And all of this is galvanizing people and saying, this is what I want. I want to consume it where I want, when I want, and I want more variety. This is what the content creation industry used to be able to satisfy, and now the internet is going to take that over. The reason this is going to happen because there's this major tipping point, and that tipping point is this fulcrum of bidirectional communication. In order to position ourselves for this, we need to make sure that we understand when you're complacent with the status quo, that's your enemy. Complacency with the status quo will decide who lives and who dies in the arts and sciences. And it's critical that we understand that relationship, and we don't get complacent with the status quo. I find that the healthy balance to do that is an equal relationship between people that are technically minded and creatively minded. I call that being technative. And if you have that in your mind and you have that idea, you can actually steer clear of this and you can capitalize on it. Because to the artists, to the misfits, to the entrepreneurs, to the engineers, to the creatives, to the inventors, and to the technatives, if you can understand the relationship between convenience and control, and you can inspire change, then that gives you an opportunity. That might mean your idea might generate the very next chain reaction. Thank you.